Hey guys, alright, so I want to introduce you to a new blade. This is a blade designed by a friend of mine. He's a former Marine. This is called a Super Squad knife, and as you can see, it's pretty decent. Nice size. Overall length is about an 8.5. The blade's probably going to be about 4 inches. And I'll take you through the process of how I design, carve, and basically get folks' blade out. Like I said before, a lot of times it's a lot easier if you draw me a picture than if you try to explain it to me. This way there's no mistakes. So what I'll do is I'll get my bar stock right here. This is 1095 high carbon steel. I think it's about 2 inches. And all I do is I make a copy, use some spray adhesive, make sure you clean the steel with some acetone, and just place that on there like that. Give it a couple minutes to dry. It'll be a little bit tacky. What I like to do too is also leave a little bit at the end. Some people say it's waste, but I don't necessarily trust drawing pictures. So if you drew the picture, that's great, but a lot of times the handles, they have to be over 4 inches or else they won't fit correctly in your hand. And I like to go a little bit more than 4 inches, maybe 4 1/4, 4 1/2. So I leave a little bit at the end to see, once I cut it out with the angle grinder, how it works. So now this is nice and dry. I'm going to take it over to the angle grinder. The angle grinder, and just cut it out. Alright guys, so got it in my vise. You'll see there's a couple other blanks on this steel. What I do is I try to use 1 bar of steel at a time, and if I'm going to cut out blanks, I'll cut out a bunch of blanks just so I have them. So you'll see the bar be marked up with other knives. And just make sure you have your cut wheel. Alright, not your grinding wheel, but your cut wheel and your angle grinder. Gloves, eyes, ears, and of course, lungs. Alright guys, so that's pretty much the blank. It's not a big knife. It looks bigger. It always looks bigger on paper than what it actually is. And I especially had to straighten it out on the flat grinder because steel doesn't always come in perfectly straight, even though it should. Stuff happens. So I have to give it like a flat grind right there. And then that's pretty much the blank. I did change it up a little bit. I made a little angle handle. The handle he had was a little bit too small. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fix this ricasso right here, and then I'm going to straighten this out. You could put it in a vise, but I just do it by hand with my rotary tool and make sure that this is nice and concave, nice, fits in the hand nice. Doesn't have to be 100%, just has to fit in the hand correctly. And I didn't make too much of a scoop here because I didn't want to make too much of a scoop because then this pinky finger will get caught back here and it'll be very uncomfortable. So just trying to make it right, and hopefully you'll be happy with it. Alright guys, so what I usually do here is I take my new belt off and replace it with a used one. And I think I said this before, the reason I use a used belt is because when you're gonna do your plunge cuts and all that other stuff, all the specs that are glued on, all the actual sand or silicone or whatever ceramic that's on there is gonna come off. Get all my used belts to do all the plunge cuts and then get it going, and then I switch to a nice new belt and it'll cut a lot faster. So
what's it doing now?
Alright guys, so I got the profile pretty much the way I want it. Nice flat grind, spear point, okay, looks awesome already. What I like to do is, like I said, I put it on the flat platen to make all the lines go this way, so this way when I do a bevel I have a better gauge at where I'm at on each side. Not only is it for aesthetics, but it gives me a guideline, and of course I'm going to clean this up before it goes to heat treat. But you can see large flat grinds are excellent blades, blade bevels, and the idea behind it is you can keep sharpening this and have more than enough. It's great for chopping, and I appreciate anything that's going to be a EDC or small bush knife or EDC, you know, made for field work. I like to do a flat grind. If it's for ultimate cuts or skinning, you know, I might do something like a convex or even better yet, a hollow grind. But that's overall. So now I got to put the handles on, handle holes I should say, and all I do is I just, you know, take my caliper, set it on, make sure it's working, and I try to find the center. So this is there it is. I like to use millimeters when I do. It's about 28. So what I do is I go up, I go about right there. It's about 13.3, 13.36, and then I'll cinch it down and I'll scribe the line. Kind of hard to see, I know, but it's the reason I do it like that. You see, let's see if you can see the scratch line right there. It's right there. It's really hard to tell, but it's in there. Alright, so now that I got my center line, what I like to do is just go a little bit above the center line. I don't necessarily keep the center because it just looks different. It's an optical illusion. If you go center line completely, what happens is it looks like the screws or the pivot or the pins are lower. So what I like to do is just go a little bit above, and then again I use my calipers, and I do use my square. Alright, now I know that at the back of this blade he wanted some type of lanyard hole, so I try to find out where that is. Alright, so I want to make some guidelines here. Alright, and the reason I made that is because that's going to be the end that's sticking out. And I know if I look at my picture, okay, there's an end sticking out over here. See that? So I want to make sure that that's sticking out. And he has 1, 2, 3 holes, and he has a lanyard hole. Alright, so I'm going to say for this, I'm going to put the lanyard hole about there. I think that's a good. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't come too close to the edge, too close to any edge, but having a good spot. I always try to go at least a 1/4 inch in from any sides, because when you do put the handles on, you tend to grind down some of the steel, and then before you know it, there's not enough stuff around it, and it looks really terrible when you have your lanyard hole off the side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, alright, where's the end of the ricasso? Where's the beginning of the ricasso? Alright, so now there you go. So now you can see where the handle's starting to fill out. So from here to here is where the handle's going to fill out. Then what I like to do is get pretty even space. So I'm dealing with about, let's see, from point to point, I want to say 3 and almost 4 inches, but it's about 3 3¾ So what I like to do is I'll go by inch. I'd say maybe 1 1/4 inches, the first one, 1 1/4 inches, the second one, and then 1 1/4 inches for the last one. Okay, like that. Alright, so if I see that I don't like it, like you can see this one's not good enough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some acetone, start over, and maybe I want to go more about here, or here, or here. Alright, that looks a little bit more even, and I'll measure it out and I'll go with those. But as long as the center line is straight this way, horizontally, then you want to make sure that, okay, if these are the horizontal lines, at least it follows the curve of the handle. And that's one of the most important things, is follow the curve of the handle. Make sure that if that scratch line follows the curve, put your holes in the same pattern. Otherwise you start getting the holes that look like zigzags, and it really looks terrible. So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to use these cuts, these holes that I put here, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to drill a hole right there. Alright guys, so as you can see, I corrected my mistakes, and I got them exactly where I want them. So what I do is I have a punch, I line up the punch right in the center of that dot. This is an automatic punch. Put it right where you want that blade to go. Okay, once that punch, you bring it over to the drill press, go right through, and we have our holes. Just a tip on this, guys, when I first started doing this, I used different size bits. I would use 3/16 on the pins, and then 1/4 on the lanyard hole, but it is more cost effective to buy all the same size pins and tubes and just use one bit instead of two. For smaller blades, you might have to go to 3/16, but then again, make all the holes 3/16. It's just simple math, guys. It just makes sense. I like big, a screw head or a pin that's 3/16 thick is not such a big deal compared to a 1/4. 1/4 actually looks better on a lot more handles, I'm finding, than a smaller one, depending on the size of the blade. But this makes it a lot easier. And notice I don't use oil on this. This steel is already annealed, and the blade, as long as it's a metal blade and relatively sharp, it'll go through. You just want to have a nice, easy, steady pressure. It does help to have a piece of wood backing on it. So you can see this piece of oak right here underneath it. It holds it up, and of course this drill vise is phenomenal. It's pretty heavy duty, and if I clamp it down to the table, it works really good. Just keep it on a low speed, steady pressure, and it'll go right through. Alright guys, so what I like to do is I like to chamfer the holes a little bit, and if you don't have a chamfer bit, that's one of those It looks like a cone type thing. I had one, I just can't find it. I just use a bigger bit. This is an inch bit. And all I'm doing is widening the holes a little bit. See, I almost made a mistake right there. But as you can see, it widens the holes out a little bit with that 45-degree angle, and what that does is it allows the glue to set in around the pin. If you just went straight, that glue has it doesn't have a lot to adhere to. Now, I just remembered that the outside lanyard hole is not going to be covered by a handle. So, any type of handle material. So if I chamfered it, it wouldn't look bad, but it wouldn't look right. So this is all about making it look right. These 3 holes right here are going to be covered by my Carter scales, so I don't have to worry about it. And what I usually do to lighten this up a little bit, I won't do it now because I'm going to send it to the owner and see if he likes it. But what I'm going to do is I can drill out little tiny holes here and here so the glue goes all the way through. Alright, so that's really what you're looking for, something that looks like that. Now the last bit I got to do is he requested some jimping up top, so that's what I'm going to do. Alright guys, what I usually do, see if you can get some light on there, is as I said before, I marked out my ricasso and I know the handle is going to come to here. So if the handle is going to come to here on back, I want to have the thumb or the finger a little bit, maybe give me an inch of ricasso. All right, it's not always necessary to have jimping on the blade. Some people like it, some people don't. I do know if I do put jimping up here, it might interfere with a Pharisaium rod, or it might take too much off of the Pharisaium rod, which then again, kind of depending on what you're looking for. I am going to start a little bit about up to here, maybe give it 1, 2, 3, 4 little jimping marks, and then that's it. Like I said, there's different ways to do it. You can use the rounds, you can use the squares, you can do little thin cuts with a Dremel. The whole reason for doing it is so when you are using the knife, you have something to have more maneuverability with your thumb or your forefinger, depending on what you're trying to do with the blade itself. I don't know what his intention is, but he put it on the thing, so on the plan, so I'm just going to do it. Basically what I use is chainsaw files. Believe it or not, these are the best files that I have found to cut steel. For obvious reasons. If it's able to sharpen a chainsaw, then it's able to cut into some, if it's able to cut into a chainsaw, raw steel shouldn't be a problem. So basically what I do is, just try to go one way if you can. Drag it across or push forward depending on what you're trying to do. I always find that pushing forward, maybe using a little guide thumb, kind of helps out a lot. Get it going and then work it. And then you can put some pressure on it. Alright. Turn the file, get the grooves out, work with it a little bit. What you want to try to do is keep it as level as possible. You don't want to cant the file one way or the other, because then you get crooked jimping, and it looks terrible. You can mark this out ahead of time if you're really worried about it, but ultimately it's going to come down to your hand-eye coordination, how straight you can make this. I used to do this with a Dremel, and a Dremel is 10 times faster, but then you're 10 times more likely to make a mistake that you will not be able to correct because it spins at such a high velocity. Whereas with a file, you can stop, look at it. All right, I'm a little crooked here, let me straighten it out. So, works like that. Alright, so that's it. So you decide where you want to stop, right? Put your thumb down, make another one. That's it. And just keep going. Alright guys, last thing in this process before it goes to heat treat is I got to put my maker's mark on there. Normally the maker's mark I put it depends on the size of the blade. This is a smaller blade, so I'll be using my 3/32. I do have a 1/8 inch one, and what I usually do is I use the heaviest sledgehammer I can handle. This is the 16-inch sledge, and I just choke up on it. The reason I use a heavy sledge is because instead of trying to whack it as hard as you can, you just lift the sledge up and make it a lot easier for yourself if you just let it fall where it's supposed to fall. You know, just kind of line it up, make sure it's on the ricasso edge wherever you want it to be. Do a little downward pressure, make sure it's comfortable there. I like to put mine right in the center of the ricasso, a little bit towards the edge, and just whack it. And that's it. Done deal. Let's see if it'll... Alright guys, so that's pretty much it. From this point on, I have to, you know, show it to the creator, buyer, and see if this is what he wanted, if this is what he had in mind. I think I pretty much got what he was looking for with a little bit of, you know, my enhancements, I would say. Blade came out pretty nice. Obviously this has to go to heat treat. I can rock well hard this up to 5860. It's 1095. It probably will do a lot better if I coat it with something, Cerakote or some type of gun bluing. It will last a lot longer. But again, I think it's a great overall EDC knife. I do not have the permission to sell this because this is not my design. However, if he gives me the go ahead, I'll do another video and let you guys know, hey listen, this is a collaborative, so and so, and you know, hopefully he'll have his website up by then. Overall, the blade is about 8.5 inches overall. The blade from the ricasso here is 4 inches. The ricasso is a ½ inch. Alright, so that worked out pretty well, pretty accurate. The blade itself is 1.75 inches, and the grind obviously is a part of that. But overall, really nice. 3/16 inch thick steel. Has the jimping on top. I know everybody likes the jimping, and I don't know if anybody's caught on to this, but there's 1, 2, 3 jimping holes, which I put on all my blades, which basically means 3 river blades. So I'm not going to put that in a lot of videos, but if you're interested, that's where that comes from. That's why I always try to put a little bit more of myself into the blades. And that's it. And I'll send this to him and see if he likes it. And if he likes it, he'll send it back. We'll put some nice scales on there, heat treat it, put some scales on there, make it really nice, and you know, see if we can get these into production. So there you go guys, that is the Super Squad. Hopefully available to you soon. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.